I've always known that I was the overlooked child in my family, especially in my father's eyes. The moment I entered the room, I could almost feel the weight of what was expected from me. My brother, with his charming smile and confident demeanor, commanded attention and admiration like it was woven into his very being. His laughter rang out, bright and carefree, while I often found my words tangled up in thoughts. I had long accepted that my father's gaze never lingered on me the way it did on him. It was as if I was drifting through life in a shadow, always a step behind, constantly battling the sense of inadequacy that followed me like a dark cloud. Today was particularly hard. I could feel my heart racing as I braced myself for the storm that was about to hit. My brother and I had set our chairs at the kitchen table, the worn wooden surface polished by years of family meals and discussions. As our plates gleamed under the soft amber light overhead, my brother casually brought up the huge gift my father had just given him. It seemed like it felt monumental to him, but to me, it felt like a slap in the face. "You won't believe it, but Dad finally came through for me," he exclaimed, elation spilling from his voice like honey. I tilted my head, feigning a forced smile, even though I felt a lump in my throat growing heavier with each word he spoke. 50,000 bucks, Hazel. Can you believe that? The words echoed in my mind, and bile rose in my throat. $50,000. I was working two jobs from early morning until late at night just to scrape together enough to pay my bills. Each month, I had been living paycheck to paycheck, counting coins for gas, for groceries, each decision an exercise in desperation. As I served my brother an incredulous look, he continued, clouded by an air of triumph. "Dad says I'm ambitious and driven. It's about time he recognized my efforts, right? How nice for you," I managed to croak out, forcing the air through my lips. Would a sincere congratulation even reach my brother, or would he brush it off as just another bland pleasantry? I couldn't help but think that this moment, this heavy bundle of unfairness, stuck to my skin like a second layer. "Come on, say you're proud of me," he said, flashing his disarming smile. The grin that always lit up the room made the darkness around me feel even more consuming. Or was it simply that he radiated happiness and I dimmed next to him? "I am," I said, though I could hardly convince myself at that moment. He didn't seem to hear the undertone of bitterness drowning my words. "Is it going towards a new business already?" "Yup, I've got all these big ideas." He leaned in, his eyes sparkling with dreams that felt so distant from mine. "A tech startup. I'm going to change the world. Can you imagine? I'll be on the cover of magazines." Magazines. The thought sent another rush of jealousy surging through my veins. I imagined his face plastered on the glossy pages, surrounded by success stories hailed as the latest genius in technology. And here I was, buried under overwhelming bills and drowning in the monotony of surviving. My phone vibrated on the table, pulling me from the void for a brief moment before reality pulled me back. It was a notification about another overdue credit card payment. I glanced at it and quickly shoved it away, hoping no one noticed. "Whatcha thinking about?" my brother asked, already oblivious to my tension. "You seem quiet today, is everything okay?" "Just, working," I mumbled, hiding the frustration bubbling within. "I have to work extra shifts next week." He shrugged, effortlessly swaying from one topic to another like it was a beautiful dance while I was stumbling around, tripping off beat. "Can you believe it? I plan to rent a sleek office space. Imagine the potential. I could use some support, though." Support. The word danced cruelly in my mind, reminding me of the endless lack that poured from my father's expectations. I felt small and resentful with each passing moment, the urge to scream out like a child flaring deep in my chest. "What about all the risks? Have you even thought this through?" I hesitated, caught between care and bitterness. "Not every idea works out. "Is that so?" He chuckled, the sound echoing warm and confident. "Of course it will work out for me. I know how to hustle. Besides, Dad believes in me." His words were like daggers, an unintentional reminder that while I was buried in work, my brother wove dreams with hands that were seemingly made of silver. I never received the confidence, the energy, nor the money. I felt like a cardboard cutout while he was the centerpiece of the family's admiration. "I just don't know what makes you so special," I muttered, the bitterness spilling from my lips before I could stop myself. "What do you mean?" His face tightened, and I instantly regretted my words. "Dad never missed an opportunity to show how proud he is of you," I said, searching for the courage to say what had been churning in my gut for years. "It's always about you, your successes, your plans. Meanwhile, I am doing everything I can just to get by." "No one wants to hear you rant," he shot back, the tension rising like a suffocating blanket. "Why can't you be happy for me?" My heart thudded painfully in my chest. "Because sometimes it feels like I am invisible, like my efforts don't matter at all." The words escaped in an unsteady breath. "Hazel," he sighed, exasperated. "You always play the victim. Maybe if you put your heart into something, people would notice. Stop seeing it as a competition." Did he hear himself? My heart raced, pounding in anger as I pushed my chair back forcefully, causing it to scrape loudly against the floor. I needed air, needed to escape the stifling atmosphere of expectations that was threatening to choke me. Sometimes it feels like you don't care about me at all, I said, my voice almost breaking. Of course I care, he insisted, although his eyes flitted away from mine, betraying the truth. You just need to work harder, be more driven. Driven, I mocked, the sound dripping with contempt. If being driven means being blind to the people you care about, then I want no part of it. He threw his hands up. Fine, if that's what you think, then maybe I should just stop trying to include you in my life. Include me? I spat, bitterness flooding my veins like venom. You've never once included me, and you know it. You could never see me beyond what Dad thinks I am, a failure. He stood up, his chair nearly tipping over as he gathered himself, a display of energy that seemed almost foreign to me. I am not responsible for your insecurities. This is about me and my future. You should be congratulating me, not resenting me. In that moment, I felt the world narrowing, the room closing in like a trap. I stepped away, my body buzzing with a mix of anger and despair. Congratulations, I said flatly, every syllable heavy with the truth of rejection that had been hammered into me for years. He shot me a look of disbelief, the judgment hanging thick in the air between us. Good luck finding anyone who will ever take you seriously if you continue like this. The sting of his words clung to me as he turned sharply and exited the kitchen, leaving behind a space that felt achingly empty. I sank into the chair he abandoned, head in my hands. The house was silent, the clattering sounds of laughter and joy dulled by the distance of resentment that had broadened the gap between us, the stick that would eventually break the fragile bond. How long had I felt this way? This bubbling sense of inadequacy had been brewing within me since childhood, missing each hint of support while my brother soaked it in like a sponge. Tears welled up behind my eyelids, blurring my gaze as I stared at the scattered remnants of our abandoned meal. I had lost the battle yet again, still standing in the shadow, chasing after the light that never reached me. Sinking deeper into my thoughts, I traced the path that brought me here, captive to my brother's perception and my father's unwavering favoritism. Could I ever break free? I wondered mournfully. Would I remain forever tethered to the feeling of worthlessness? Or was there a way out of this stifling cycle I had become steeped in? The weight of those questions settled heavily in my chest, but amidst that turmoil, something began to flicker within me. A thought, a faint spark that offered a glimpse of hope. No more. No more being the overlooked child, no more withholding the pain bursting to escape. The bitterness fueling my resolve was unsettling, but I felt it an awakening. It was time to redefine who I was, to summon the strength that had been buried beneath years of silence. I tucked the resolve deep inside my heart, cautious but ready. I would find a way to break free from the mold that held me captive. I would no longer be the lesser child. Feeling the burning flame of determination ignite, I took a breath, ready to unleash it, though I could not yet see how. But step by step, I would find my way out from the shadows and into the light of my own future one day as I shoveled through the musty boxes in the dimly lit attic. The smell of aged paper hit me like a wave, stirring memories of family gatherings long gone. The soft creak of the wooden floorboards echoed around me, almost mocking the silence as I rummaged through old photographs and letters, most of which had seen better days. Dust particles danced in the narrow beam of light that pierced through the tiny attic window, revealing the chaos of the past I was unearthing. The stories of our family, captured in fading ink and yellowed pages, felt like a weight pulling me deeper into a history filled with both laughter and pain. With every letter I unfolded, every photograph that slipped from its fragile corner, I felt an intense mixture of nostalgia and frustration, conflicting emotions colliding as they did. My brother, sitting like a king at the family's dinner table, regaling tales of his lavish adventures, stood in stark contrast to my daily grind. I could imagine him now, leaning back in a plush leather chair at a five-star restaurant, mocking my struggles as he waved the server over for another round of expensive wine. I tried to shake off the bitterness, reminding myself that I should be above petty jealousy. But the resentment built inside me like a bubbling kettle, growing hotter and more intense the more I thought about it. Did he even notice my silent suffering? Did it occur to him for a second that his brotherly love came at an enormous cost to me? I pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the task at hand, searching for anything that might provide a glimpse into our family's past. Then there it was, tucked between two faded photos of my grandparents standing proudly outside their modest home. It was a single document, its edges worn but the typeface still sharp enough to read. Notice of financial mismanagement, it proclaimed at the top. My eyes narrowed as I absorbed the words, skepticism clouding my mind. Was this some kind of mistake? A joke? I quickly scanned the details, my heart pounding as I read about misallocated funds and mismanagement that I had never been aware of until now. What on earth? I muttered, feeling my breath catch. I could hardly believe my eyes. My fingers trembled as I traced the lines of text, each word pulling me deeper into this tangled web of deception. It didn't take long for the truth to become excruciatingly clear. The dollars that my brother had spent so carelessly, the flashy new car, the extravagant dinners, the expensive nights out, had all been purchased with my inheritance. A $50,000 inheritance, I whispered in disbelief. That was supposed to be mine. The realization crashed over me like a wave, leaving me gasping for breath. I felt the fury rise from the pit of my stomach, climbing up my throat, squeezing tighter and tighter until I thought I might choke on it. How could my father have done this to me? My mind raced with the memories of his authoritative presence, always at the center of family discussions, always dictating the terms of unity while silently setting the stage for betrayal. I thought of the conversations we had, the moments I had trusted him completely, believing that he had my best interests at heart. It felt like everyone else around me had seen through his facade, while I had been blind to the quiet treachery that rang so clearly now. It was never about family, I said softly, reflecting on all those years of unreciprocated trust. I could feel the bitterness curling inside me like a snake, wrapping tighter in a suffocating grip. Placing the document on the floor, I leaned back against the wall, the cool wood uncomfortable against my skin, but I welcomed it, anything to ground me against the storm surging inside. He did this to me, I murmured, my voice barely a whisper. He made me the outsider in my own family. I imagined my brother strutting around with his newfound glory, filled with laughter, oblivious to the horror raging beneath the surface. Why does he get to live so freely? I thought bitterly as I curled my hands into fists, my nails digging into my palms. I could feel the rage pulsing through my veins, sparked by the theft of what should have been mine. I stood up suddenly, tossing the document aside as I felt a wave of adrenaline rush through my body. No more. I will not be a victim of their games any longer. Fury morphed into resolve. I was not going to let my father's financial manipulations define my future. I grabbed the document once more, taking a closer look at it, my mind now racing with plans. This evidence, I thought, my breath catching in my throat again, this could change everything. This is what I need. This is how I take back what's mine. As I folded the document carefully, my heart raced at the thought of confronting my father. A flood of images danced through my mind, scenes of harsh confrontations and dark truths revealed in the heat of the moment, my words coating him in guilt. I know what you did, I practiced saying, mocking it in my mind, trying my best to maintain composure. A part of me felt powerful holding such damning evidence, while another part was terrified of unleashing this wave of resentment. What if he denied it? What if he attacked my character, twisting my own pain into accusations against me? I took a deep breath, reminding myself that the anger directed against him was far more powerful than the fear creeping innocently at the edges of my mind. He doesn't get to control me anymore, I whispered fiercely to myself, clutching the document against my chest, feeling almost empowered by the shattering truth. With newfound determination, I decided I had to act fast. I could see it all in my head, standing in our living room, confronting him over every dinner spent ignoring the truth while he basked in the spoils of my own inheritance. The laughter haunting me like a specter would finally stop. I will not sit here in silence while he prances around, I could hear myself say, adrenaline pumping in my veins as I imagined the look on his face when he realized that I was aware of his duplicity. The thrum of anger pulsed through me, syncing with the rhythm of my heartbeat as I climbed down from the attic, each creak beneath my feet sounding like a countdown. My muscles tensed in anticipation of what was to come, even as doubts trickled into my mind. Was I ready for this battle? Would I be able to confront him without losing my cool? I shook my head, dismissing the nagging discomfort. No more questioning, I thought defiantly. I'll take back what's mine with my own voice. As I descended the last few steps, I heard my brother in the distance, his voice ringing clean and carefree the way it always did. You should have seen the new ride, man. Black leather seats and all the bells and whistles. Mom and Dad are totally jealous. His exuberant laughter filled the air, slicing effortlessly through my resolve. Jealous of what? I mused silently as my gut twisted with outrage. Jealous of his extravagant purchases or of what their precious son had become? I clenched the document in my palm, now a ball of power waiting to be unleashed. No more would I remain in the shadows. No more would I absorb their deception silently. I felt unstoppable. With my heart pounding hard against my chest and every fiber of my being alight with fury, I stepped into the living room. The sight of him, sprawled comfortably on the couch, threw gasoline onto my fire, fueling my determination. Just wait, I thought, feeling the corners of my lips twitch with the thrill of what was to come. This is only the beginning. I had been counting down the days until Sunday, my heart a mix of anxiety and determination as the moment drew nearer. Family dinner was our weekly ritual, a time when laughter mixed with the clattering of forks against plates, a familiar cadence singing of togetherness. But today felt different, heavy with the weight of impending confrontation. My brother, ever the golden child, was a constant source of irritation, his boisterous laughter and elaborate tales of success echoing around the table, each story pricking at my already raw nerves. I smiled, though it felt more like a grimace, watching him weave enchantingly through his latest achievements, promotions, financial gains, accolades, each word a reminder of my own perceived failures. As I sat in my usual seat, the corner of the dining table, the smells of roasted chicken and seasoned potatoes wafting through the air, my heart pounded loudly in my chest, almost drowning out the sounds around me. There was an overwhelming sensation in my gut, a storm of emotion roiling just beneath the surface. I could feel the heat climbing into my cheeks as I caught sight of my father's face, bathed in warm, golden light from the chandelier above. The laughter he shared with my brother resonated in my bones like nails on a chalkboard, a painfully simple reminder that my worth seemed defined by their achievements. I shot a glance at my brother, his face aglow with smugness as he relished each compliment like a child hoarding candy. You wouldn't believe the amount of sales I closed this week, he exclaimed, leaning back in his chair and puffing out his chest. I am convinced I am on my way to the top. My father leaned in closer, his eyes gleaming with pride, and that was when I realized I had reached my breaking point. Timing was everything. I could feel the tightness in my throat as I worked up the courage to speak. A moment of silence fell upon the room as I cleared my throat, my heart thundering like a drum. Dad, I said, my voice barely above a whisper at first, but it slowly strengthened as I continued. Can we talk? I need to address something important. A mix of surprise and curiosity washed over their faces as they turned to me. The lively banter around the table came to an abrupt halt. Sure, Hazel, what is it? My father spoke, a hint of apprehension in his tone as he placed his fork down with a clatter, the sound echoing in the stillness. My brother's smirk faded, his curiosity piqued. I pulled out the document I had tucked away in my pocket, my hands trembling as I unfolded it. I could almost hear the sharp intake of breath from my brother as I laid the papers onto the table between us, the ink printed on the aged paper seeming to emerge like a dark omen. I want you to see this, I declared, my voice booming in the silence. This document proves everything. Sinking feeling, I noticed my father's expression morph from interest to disbelief, his brows knitting together as he squinted at the page. What is this? He asked, his voice wavering. My brother leaned over, glancing at the document with growing suspicion. It's the transaction history, I explained, my anger igniting with each word. The $50,000 you gave to my brother, my rightful inheritance. This was not your money to give. The air thickened as I watched comprehension dawn on their faces. The shock registering on my father's face was worth every single moment of distress I had endured in the past years. It lit a fire of triumph inside me, a feeling I had not felt in a long time. You cannot be serious, he finally stammered, his voice laced with disbelief. Hazel, this is a mistake. I leaned in closer, fury igniting my spirit. A mistake? No, Dad, it is clear you've chosen favorites. You always have. You deprive me of my rightful share, and instead you shower him with everything. In that moment, the din of the dinner faded into the background, turning into a hush so profound that I could hear the faint beating of my heart. I confirmed it, my reality, my fear, laid bare in front of my father's eyes. Come on, Hazel, don't be childish, my brother interjected, his voice dripping with impatience. You know Dad only wanted to reward me for my hard work. You always act so entitled. How dare he use that word? Entitled? I barked back, bitterness flooding my voice. All I wanted was an equal chance, but you took that away from me? I am not entitled to anything. I am just asking what is fair. My father's eyes darted between me and my brother, panic beginning to seep into his demeanor. This is completely unnecessary, he shot back, a rising edge in his voice. Hazel, I cannot just hand over money. This was given as a reward. His denial felt like a slap, echoing off the walls of our neatly decorated dining room, and I could tell the walls around us began to crack, the illusion of a perfect family shattering. Rewarded? I snapped, disbelief morphing into fury. What was my reward for all those years of labor? Did I not earn my place as the firstborn? My dreams squashed beneath the weight of your favoritism? You think this is just about money, but it is about so much more. You stole my future. My hands were trembling, a mixture of rage and vulnerability bubbling beneath the surface. My brother's confusion began to unfold into anger, his brows drawing together as he shot daggers at me with his icy gaze. You're just jealous. Just because you couldn't succeed doesn't mean you can blame Dad or me for your failures. We've all worked hard for what we have. If you had put in the effort like I did, you would have something too, he challenged, a condescending edge creeping into his tone. That was it. The dam in my chest burst open, my voice rising over his. You call what you have hard work. All you've done is glide through life on Dad's coattails. Your hard work was built on the back of my sacrifice. The table rattled from the intensity of my emotions spilling forth, a chaotic storm brewing at our dining table. Everyone makes sacrifices, Hazel. You need to understand that, my father replied, but the weakness in his voice betrayed him. This is not the way to talk about family matters. The concern in his voice felt like feigned empathy, and it only fueled the fire within me. Family matters? So this is your idea of family? Favoring one child over another? I felt a desperate need to make them see how skewed the situation was. Year after year, I watched you prop him up while treating me like a ghost. I am done being invisible. I will not accept this anymore. The silence hung thick in the air, and I could see the confusion spreading in my brother's eyes as he furrowed his brow. You're acting like a child, Hazel. None of this makes sense. Just back off. His voice trembled but regained its heat, trying to hold on to the pride he had built around himself. No, I protested, my voice breaking through the tension like thunder striking after a calm sunset. I am done being the quiet one, the one who smiles in the background while you take everything I deserve. You both need to hear me. I couldn't just stand idly by any longer while they basked in the glow of my father's favoritism. The document felt like a ray of truth in my hands, and I was going to make them listen. I have worked every bit as hard as you have. This is not just about the money, it is about my dignity. You have been keeping my potential locked away just because you chose to handpick the golden child. I spat the last words, letting the frustration from years of feeling overlooked seep out like a poison. Never meant to hurt you, my father finally said, his voice a tad softer as he slowly turned back to me, searching for any trace of empathy in my eyes. I thought I was doing what was best for all of us. I thought that by giving your brother this chance, it would motivate you. I hesitated, his words sinking in, but all I could feel was the simmering rage ready to explode. Motivation? I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. So you thought granting him money and accolades would motivate me to fail less? You pushed me to the sidelines like I didn't matter, like I was unworthy. Well, guess what? I have had enough and I won't stand for it any longer. My brother scoffed, but I could see a crack forming in his arrogant facade, realization dawning as if he were catching a glimpse of the truth I was laying bare before him. You think yelling is going to change anything? He retorted, but the fury in his voice was weakening, unraveling in the face of reality. No, but the truth will, I countered, steadying my breath as I stared deep into my father's eyes, begging him to see the pain behind my anger. Truth will always sting more than any outburst. You always praised him for everything, glossing over my achievements as if they were mere strings tied to second place. Tension curled in a tight knot within me, and even though the confrontation played out like a dreadful orchestra filled with discordant notes, I felt something shift. The air changed, the energy sparking and crackling as my father glanced down at the document again, his face traced with shadows of contemplation. It was as if he was peeling back layers of denial and revealing only confusion left behind. I never wanted you to feel unworthy, he admitted quietly, the words practically shuddering from his lips. I thought it would enable you to rise up. I thought it would drive you harder. And it drove me into submission. My voice dropped lower, aching with the weight of years lost in the struggle for recognition. I needed you to be fair, not just with money or possessions, but with love and time. I needed you to see me. As my heart raced, I glanced around the table. The atmosphere felt twisted, charged like a live wire waiting to snap. The revelation hung in the air, thick and charged, as my brother sat quietly, shock enveloping his previous arrogance. I needed him to understand that it wasn't just a matter of jealousy or entitlement, it was about the core of who we were as a family. Both of you need to realize what your favoritism has done to me. I am not just Hazel, your leftover child. I am worthy. You both need to acknowledge that. For the first time, I saw my brother falter, vulnerability threading through his sharp gaze. It was a moment where we were stripped of our defenses, just two wounded souls staring back at each other, lost in the flood of truth. But it didn't change the way I still felt about the betrayal. Would this be the moment that changed everything? The act of revelation restoring balance amongst us? I didn't know, but as the meal remained untouched in front of us, the weight of my revelation lingered like an uninvited guest, refusing to leave until we faced the reality I laid bare before them. The moment hung in the air like thick smoke, heavy and suffocating. My father's face was transformed, a maze of confusion, denial, and barely contained fury. I could practically hear his heart pounding in the deafening silence, and I dared to break it with an unwavering voice. You thought I would just sit back and let this go? Why? Because I was always the backup plan? News flash, I'm not the backup anymore. My brother stood across from me, his eyes wide, surprised, and hurt as he pieced together the shocking revelation. A family gathering had turned into the battleground for my vengeance. The evidence lay spread out on the table before us like damning artifacts of an unspeakable betrayal. A series of emails were printed neatly, each one a dagger that drove deeper into the fabric of our family, each exchange between my father and his business contacts, tearing away the illusion he had crafted over the years. I could see my father's jaw clench, the muscles twitching under his skin as he struggled to maintain his composure. Hazel, you do not understand business, he snapped, his voice laced with irritation, the kind that could peel paint off walls. This was merely a strategic move. Your brother has ambition, the drive to make something of himself, and I was merely investing in his potential. As he spoke, his eyes darted to my brother, searching for support for some shared allegiance, but my brother remained frozen, caught in his own web of realization. Investing? Really? I almost laughed, but the bitterness caught in my throat as I pressed on, tone icy cold. You mean siphoning off what was rightfully mine just because you think he has more potential? Did you ever think just for a second that I deserved a chance to? I have fought every day to prove I was more than just an afterthought. My father shifted, and for a split second, something shifted in his expression, perhaps a crack in the facade he had worn for so long. You have to understand, Hazel, it is a competitive world out there. I had to do what was best for the business. As I met his gaze directly, I could see that his bravado was starting to wane. Best for the business. I echoed, daring to let my voice rise slightly. Or it was best for you? This isn't just about business, father. You made it personal when you decided my aspirations were less valid than my brother's, that my contributions were not worth the same weight. He opened his mouth, probably to retort, but words failed him. There was a moment of silence, thick with the tension we had all felt over the years, years I spent waiting in the shadows, always knowing I was good enough, even if he did not. My brother blinked rapidly, like he was coming out of a trance. Hazel, he finally said, his voice breaking the silence, what are you saying? I didn't understand any of this. He seemed genuinely lost, caught between his loyalties and the reality crashing in on him. I took a deep breath, the taste of anger pouring out like venom. Open your eyes, don't you see that Dad invested in you at the cost of my dreams? I have put my heart into this family business for years, and I always got the scraps. While you were celebrated, I was dismissed. The emails show it all. I was nothing but a name at the bottom of the list. I could feel the familiar sting of tears at the corners of my eyes. The dam I had built was beginning to crack. Hazel, he faltered, but the frantic energy of my words propelled me forward. You need to hear it. This isn't just business, this is about respect. I deserve a chance just as much as you do, and you know that deep down. We both have driven ourselves to the breaking point for this family. But you were elevated while I was silently pushed away. He looked down, staring at the emails and what they represented. The table no longer felt like an avenue for negotiations or disputes. It had become a confidant, bearing witness to both our battles, one of a daughter denied and a son favored. My father said nothing, his silence louder than any of his previous bluster. Hazel, the truth is I never knew, my brother finally admitted, the initial shock on his face fading to realization and perhaps a trace of guilt. This is all so twisted. I thought you were fine with everything. His eyes searched mine, and in that moment I saw doubt and confusion beginning to unravel the threads of what he had learned to accept over the years. Fine, I was never fine. I never stopped fighting, not when it came to my dreams. I turned towards my father, who, despite his stern exterior, was starting to show weariness, the armor he had worn all these years slowly cracking. You wanted to isolate your children so you could exercise control, yet here we are standing across from one another with the truth out in the open. As my voice crescendoed, I could feel a rush of exhilaration. The weight of years spent silenced was lifting off my shoulders. My tongue felt sharp, cutting through the feigned authority he had held over me for so long. You thought the titles and financial support meant something, that they could replace what inherently belongs to me. But they can't. I am part of this family, and I will not let you cast me aside any longer. I deserve what I have earned, not just what you deem fit to offer me. No door can remain closed forever. You forged this divide, and now it is time for you to face it. I continued, my voice steady. You can no longer pretend that your favoritism is just business. The joke is on you, father. This family is uniting in the face of your deception. The room was charged with an uncomfortable energy. The other family members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, feeling the seismic shift as loyalties were questioned, and perceptions began to change. There were whispers exchanged as a couple of cousins shot quick glances my way, starting to understand that the tide had subtly turned. What do you want from me, Hazel? My father finally spoke, the facade of his authority trembling. I leaned closer, lowering my voice thick with emotion. I want what I'm owed, recognition, respect, and the opportunity to succeed without the shadow of your prejudice looming over me. I want my role in this family business to be acknowledged as equal to my brother's. I am not asking, I am demanding. His eyes narrowed, and I felt a wave of uncertainty from him, all while pressure mounted in the room. You think you are the only one who worked hard? You don't know the sacrifices I made, all for this family? Yes, I do know sacrifices, I shot back. And I know how your choices have shaped the paths we walk. I stand here demanding my due. The thrill of standing my ground only grew stronger with every word. As for you, father, your plans are unraveling. How does it feel to be in the spotlight, to have the tables turned? Hazel, this is not how families should resolve disputes. He retorted, though I could sense the crack in his shield. We are not enemies. But we are now, I replied, feeling the finality of that statement. You created this enemy when you chose favorites. I am no longer willing to be the quiet daughter in the corner watching the manipulation unfold. This truth is bigger than our family, and it is certainly bigger than your fear of losing control. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. I could feel the weight of the turning tide in my favor. It was intoxicating. Every ounce of shame that I had swallowed for years was now spilling out. My brother stood frozen, still processing the revelation that had just rocked his world. I will be heard, I declared, knowing that every second was shifting the dynamic of my family. All semblance of authority was crackling around my father like a live wire, and I reveled in it. For far too long, I had been a mere whisper, but now I had the power of truth behind my words. This family might have started with a single story, but today, we are writing a new chapter, one where respect reigns and favoritism fades into the background. The air felt electric, buzzing with tension and possibility as I held my ground, unyielding in my demand for what was rightfully mine. Finally, the mask had slipped, and as I stood there, anchored in my resolve, I knew that this moment would mark the beginning of a new era for our family. Whether my father liked it or not, I stood there, feeling the tension in the living room thick as steam from a boiling kettle, my heart pounding in my chest like it wanted to break free and dance in the open air. The family sat in a semicircle before me, their expressions a mix of shock, disbelief, and mild amusement at my father's fiery crimson face. It was a scene painted with years of unnoticed grievances, each brushstroke adding to the depth of the realization that today was mine, the day I reclaimed what was rightfully mine. You can't just show up after years and expect everything to change, my brother had said earlier in the confrontation, his voice dripping with skepticism. But here we were, standing on the precipice of reality, facing the glaring truths that none of us could ignore any longer. Dad, today is not about holding illusions, I said, my voice steady despite the tremors that threatened to betray my composure. I could feel the air shift, thickening with the unspoken words that hung just above our heads like a storm waiting to erupt. My father shifted uncomfortably, his body language screaming defiance and regret in equal measure. This isn't just about the money. I gestured towards my brother, who wore that familiar smug look of entitlement like a silken cloak, one that had been woven with threads of favoritism. It's about all those years you chose him over me. Do you even understand what that did to me? To us? The living room echoed with my words as if they were desperate cries for justice. Small clouds of dust danced in the light slanting through the window, little particles swirling like emotions, anger, resentment, longing, all intermingling where they had once been suppressed. I could see the flicker of recognition in my father's eyes as I spoke, and I took a step closer, grounding myself in the conviction of my truth. You might have thought that keeping the money from me proved your point about discipline, but it only drove a wedge deeper and deeper between us. Finally, I could see it, the realization washing over him, the flickering internal battle between pride and acknowledgement. I have been a ghost in this family for far too long. Hazel, my brother cut in, trying to reclaim his footing in this rapidly changing tide of emotions. You think this is all about the money? You think you're entitled to anything after all the trouble you've caused? The disdain dripped from his words like venom, but I didn't flinch. I had come too far to be swayed by his cutting remarks now. It's not about the money, I insisted, staring directly into his eyes. It's about respect. It's about being seen, being acknowledged as more than just the black sheep of the family. I could feel the warmth of tears pooling at the corners of my eyes, but I held them back. No more tears, I told myself, not when I had fought so hard to be heard. Do you remember when I graduated? You didn't even show up, but Dad. I turned my gaze back to him. You were there in the audience, applauding him, and I stood there feeling invisible. Life isn't fair, Hazel. My father's voice boomed through the tension, but I noticed a tremor behind his assertiveness, revealing cracks in the armor he always hid behind. I made choices for the good of the family. The good of the family? The incredulity slipped through my lips without resisting its natural instincts. Is that what you told yourself when you ignored my achievements? When you made my brother feel like the golden child every single time, you thought that was good for the family? You thought that would make things better? Each word fell into the air, weighing heavily, urgent, as I stepped further into the light around the anger that had consumed my life for far too long. Hazel, my father began, but I wouldn't let him off the hook that easily. The memories flooded my mind like a dam breaking. The countless holidays where my heart ached while watching my brother be showered with gifts and praise. The birthdays I spent alone in my room, sulking, while they celebrated his every triumph. My eyes met my brother's again, and I could see the quiet panic behind his previously confident facade. He was no longer invulnerable. My father's eyes darted to him and back to me, a realization dawning behind the shame layered on his face. Look, I knew I made poor decisions, my father finally admitted, his voice cracking, the words heavy. But I thought those decisions would lead to the best outcome. I thought you would one day understand. Understand? I scoffed, disbelief bubbling to the surface. I understand perfectly, Dad. You wanted someone to carry on your legacy, someone to mold in your image, someone who wouldn't challenge you. But I am not a mirror to your failures, nor am I a pawn in your grand design. I am my own person. I deserve to be recognized, to be treated with respect. The room fell silent, and I could feel the weight of their gazes pressing on me, washing over me, engulfing me in a rush of emotions. My father, the man who had loomed so large over my life, was facing me now as something different, something breakable. There was no longer that omnipotent figure, only a man acknowledging the pain he had caused. A heavy silence hung in the air, simmering with unspoken words. Right, he finally muttered, the admission coming slowly, like a reluctant sunrise breaking through the clouds. I failed you, Hazel. I didn't manage my own biases. I didn't give you the opportunities you deserved. I see that now. A mixture of emotions surged within me. I had never considered what it would be like to hear my father admit his mistakes, to see the written evidence of his change manifest in real time. So amend your will, I demanded, setting my jaw in defiance. Let's make it official. I deserve my portion, plus a larger share for that deficit. You made decisions that robbed me of my rightful place in this family. Time to fix it. My heart felt like it was walking a fine line. I was standing up for myself, demanding the respect and acknowledgement I had always craved. It was thrilling yet terrifying. Could I turn the tides of our family tradition? Would the implications finally dismantle the power that favoritism held over us? Fine, he finally answered reluctantly, his tone strained but determined. I'll amend my will. You'll get your share back and more. I watched as he fidgeted with the cuff of his shirt, the color still draining from his face as he came to terms with the monumental shift. The applause of acknowledgement came not from the family echoing within the walls of the house, but from deep inside my core. I felt the rush. Vengeance had morphed into something tangible and satisfying. I'll get the lawyers involved, he continued, his voice steadying as he realized the weight of his decision. This family can't afford to let division continue any longer. Dad, I know your journey here hasn't been easy for you, I told him, my voice easing from the harshness of moments past to something soft yet assertive. Just admit that these patterns were toxic. We need to make changes and face truths together. I will, he stated, a profound note ringing within him, a twinge of relief mingling with the sadness of acceptance. For you, for our family, we can make it better. And just like that, it felt as if a curtain had been drawn back. Light filtered in through the darkness that had filled our relationships for years. I felt my mother's hand wrap around my arm, her warmth seeped straight through the fabric of my shirt, infusing me with the strength I had perhaps thought I had lost along the way. We can do this, she whispered, her tone filled with hope, finally breaking the silence as the air around us began to feel energized. I want that, I affirmed, a newfound resolution swelling in my heart. We can't just adapt to the current dynamics. We need to reconstruct what it means to be a family. As I glanced at my brother again, the arrogance had melted away, replaced by uncertainty. For the first time, Harry did not look like the king of our little kingdom, but rather a young man struggling with the impending shift in our family dynamics. You need to step up too, I reminded him, my voice surprisingly calm but direct. No more hiding or avoiding. We both have to confront this. The vulnerability was palpable, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe without the pressure of prior expectations suffocating me. We can grow from this, I told myself as I looked at both my brother and my father. There would be bumps on the road ahead. This was only the beginning, but I had finally taken steps to reclaim my dignity and place. I could feel the weight lifting from my shoulders. That familiar constriction of being unable to express myself started to wane, dissolving like smoke in the daylight. This is just the beginning, I added, my voice strong and clear. It's not just about today, but it's about moving forward together as equals. Let's make sure there is no turning back on this road of reconciliation. In that moment, as we stood together in the living room, a space that had been both a battleground and a sanctuary, I sent my words into the echoes of possibility now stirring in our family. We could mend broken bridges. We could forsake old paths soaked in resentment. My heart swelled with hope as I stepped out of the shadows and embraced the time to write a new chapter of truth. I finally felt powerful and free, emerging into a transformed family landscape, invincible as only honesty can make you.